Hello, family. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Surly Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The early evening sun cast a golden hue over the bustling streets of Lagos as Amina Jatau leaned back in her chair, surveying the day's reports on her laptop. The expansive living room of her Victoria Island home was a testament to her hard work and ambition. The marble floors gleamed under the light of a modern chandelier, and her walls bore hand-woven tapestries from Kano and paintings by celebrated African artists. At just 35, Amina was the embodiment of success, a self-made woman who had risen from humble beginnings in Kaduna to owning one of the most reputable real estate firms in Nigeria. Her tech company, Innovatech, was rapidly gaining traction as a leader in sustainable technology solutions. But beyond her wealth, Amina was known for her generosity, funding scholarships for underprivileged girls and mentoring young entrepreneurs. Her husband, Musa, had always been her biggest cheerleader, or so she thought. They had met 8 years ago at a business seminar in Abuja. Musa was charming, articulate, and confident, running a modest logistics company. His charisma swept her off her feet, and within a year, they were married. Their union seemed like a perfect blend of love and ambition. But perfection is often a mirage. The first signs. The first hint of trouble came in whispers. Amina's personal assistant, Ajoke, had hesitated before speaking up one afternoon. "Madam, forgive me, but I've noticed something unusual," Ajoke began cautiously, her eyes darting nervously. Amina looked up from her desk. "What is it, Ajoke?" "It's Mr. Musa. I've seen him meeting a woman at the cafe near our Lekki office." "It might be nothing, but—" Amina's stomach tightened. Ajoke was loyal, and she wouldn't bring up something like this lightly. But Amina brushed it off with a forced smile. "Thank you, Ajoke. I'll look into it." That evening, she asked Musa about his day. His answers were vague, his attention distracted by his phone. Amina chose not to press him, convincing herself that her assistant had misread the situation. After all, Musa had always supported her dreams and was deeply involved in her charitable ventures. But doubt began to creep in like an unwelcome guest, and soon, it would become impossible to ignore. The message. 3 weeks later, Amina received an anonymous text while reviewing contracts in her home office. "You should know what your husband is doing behind your back. Check Coco Lounge tonight at 9 p.m. The words blurred as anger and fear surged within her. Who could have sent such a message? Was it a prank? Or worse, was it true? Amina stared at her phone, her hands trembling. She wanted to ignore it, to believe that Musa was still the man she had trusted with her heart. But curiosity, and the seed of suspicion planted weeks ago, drove her to act. That night, dressed in a simple black dress and a silk scarf to mask her identity, Amina called a driver and headed to Coco Lounge. The upscale bar in Lekki was known for its exclusivity, catering to Lagos's elite. As she entered, the dim lights and soft jazz music did little to calm her nerves. She scanned the room, her eyes darting from table to table. Then she saw him. Musa was seated in a corner booth, leaning close to a young woman with flawless caramel skin and braids cascading down her back. The woman, Linda, laughed loudly, her manicured fingers grazing his arm. They looked intimate, comfortable, as though they had done this many times before. Amina's chest tightened. Her breath came in shallow bursts as she watched her husband whisper into Linda's ear, his smile one she hadn't seen directed at her in months. She wanted to march up to them, to scream, to demand answers. But something held her back. Instead, she slipped out of the bar, her vision blurred with unshed tears. The discovery. The next morning, Amina hired a private investigator. If Musa was betraying her, she needed proof, not just for herself but for what came next. Within days, the investigator returned with a file that shattered her world. Musa wasn't just cheating. He was systematically dismantling her empire. Bank statements showed suspicious withdrawals. Property deeds bore his signature alongside Linda's. Even her company shares were being siphoned through shell corporations. Fury replaced sorrow as Amina confronted him that evening. She held the file in her trembling hands as Musa walked into their home, his face unreadable. "Musa," she began, her voice steady but cold, "explain this." She threw the file onto the coffee table. Musa glanced at the documents and smirked. "So, you found out? That's all you have to say?" Amina's voice cracked. "After everything I've done for us, for you, you betray me like this?" Musa's expression hardened. "You thought you could have everything, didn't you? Wealth, power, respect. But a woman like you needs to remember her place. You wouldn't have any of this without me." Amina stared at him, stunned. "I built this. And you—" "Enough," Musa interrupted, his tone sharp. "The court will see it differently. I've made sure of that. You're finished, Amina." He turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of their once happy home, clutching the remnants of her shattered trust. News of their marital troubles spread like wildfire. Musa and Linda wasted no time flaunting their relationship in public. The media painted Amina as a cold, controlling wife who had driven her husband into the arms of another woman. When the court proceedings began, Musa and Linda presented forged documents and false witnesses, painting Amina as reckless with her finances. Her lawyers struggled to counter the avalanche of fabricated evidence. The humiliation was unbearable. But through it all, Amina remained composed. Behind her calm exterior, a fire was growing, a determination to reclaim not just her wealth but her dignity. As she sat in her nearly empty home, surrounded by echoes of her past, Amina made a silent vow. This is not the end. Little did Musa and Linda know, the storm they had unleashed would soon be their undoing. The courtroom buzzed with muted conversations as people filled the gallery, eager to witness the unfolding drama. Amina Jatau sat at the defendant's table, her face calm, betraying no emotion despite the storm raging within her. She wore a modest yet elegant green ochre dress, a nod to her roots, but also a silent statement of her resilience. Her dark, braided hair was neatly pulled back, revealing a face marked by exhaustion but also unyielding determination. Across the room sat Musa, impeccably dressed in a tailored gray suit, his arm casually draped around Linda, who smirked with an air of victory. Linda's outfit was designed to provoke, a figure-hugging red dress that screamed confidence and defiance. The two whispered and laughed, throwing occasional glances at Amina as though her defeat was already sealed. The presiding judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Justice Hstorytine, entered the courtroom, and the room fell silent. The gavel struck, signaling the start of the proceedings. The accusations. Musa's lawyer, a slick, fast-talking man named Barrister Hstorytine, rose to present their case. He spoke with the practiced ease of someone used to manipulating narratives. "My lord," he began, pacing dramatically, "this case is not just about the division of marital assets. It is about exposing deceit, financial recklessness, and the greed of a woman who failed to uphold her marital duties." Amina's lawyer, Barrister Ease, raised an objection, but Justice Hstorytine waved him off. "Let him finish." Hstorytine continued, holding up a stack of documents. "My client, Mr. Musa Jatau, has brought evidence proving that Mrs. Amina Jatau mismanaged funds, falsified property documents, and neglected her responsibilities as a wife. He has also provided witnesses to corroborate his claims." He gestured toward Linda, who sat smugly in the gallery. "And let us not forget that Mrs. Jatau's cold and distant behavior drove her husband into the arms of another woman. It is unfortunate, but it is the truth." The gallery erupted in murmurs. Amina clenched her fists under the table, her nails digging into her palms. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, but she knew the game Musa was playing. He wanted her to lose control. The fabricated evidence. Musa was called to the stand next. He painted a picture of himself as a long-suffering husband who had supported Amina's ambitions, only to be betrayed by her selfishness. "I gave her everything," Musa said, feigning sadness. "I encouraged her dreams, but in return, she abandoned me emotionally and treated me like an outsider in our marriage. I had no choice but to secure my future." When Linda took the stand, her testimony was even more cutting. She described herself as a victim of circumstance, claiming that Musa had confided in her about Amina's supposed neglect and financial irresponsibility. "I never planned to fall in love with Musa," Linda said, her voice soft, eyes glistening with crocodile tears. "But he deserved better than the cold, calculating woman he was married to." Amina's stomach churned as Linda handed over documents, supposedly signed by Amina, that transferred ownership of key properties to Musa. They were forgeries, but convincing ones. Even Barrister Ease struggled to discredit them. The mockery. During recess, Musa and Linda lingered near the courtroom entrance, basking in their apparent victory. As Amina walked past, they didn't bother to lower their voices. "How does it feel, Amina?" Linda taunted, her voice dripping with mockery. "To watch everything you built slip through your fingers?" Musa laughed. "She should be grateful we're leaving her with anything at all. But that's what happens when you forget your place." Amina paused, turning to face them. For a moment, the fire in her eyes startled them, but she quickly composed herself. "Enjoy this moment," she said quietly, her voice steady. "Because it won't last." Linda rolled her eyes. "You're delusional, Amina. You've lost." Amina didn't respond. She turned and walked away, her back straight, her head high. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. A glimmer of hope. Back in court, Barrister Ease presented Amina's defense. He was meticulous, pointing out inconsistencies in Musa's claims and questioning the authenticity of the documents. But it was an uphill battle. The evidence against Amina was overwhelming, and the witnesses, bribed or coerced, were convincing. By the end of the day, Amina felt the weight of despair pressing down on her. The court adjourned, and a verdict was scheduled for the following week. As she left the courtroom, journalists swarmed her, shouting questions and taking photos. "How does it feel to lose everything?" one reporter asked. "Do you have any regrets about your marriage?" another added. Amina ignored them, slipping into her car. As the driver navigated through the chaotic Lagos traffic, Amina stared out the window, her mind racing. She couldn't afford to lose. This wasn't just about money, it was about justice, about reclaiming her dignity. The turning point. That evening, Amina received a call from her mentor, Madam Ajoke, a retired businesswoman and legal expert who had been her guiding light for years. "My dear," Madam Ajoke said, her voice warm and reassuring, "don't lose hope. Every storm has its end." "I feel powerless, Mama," Amina admitted, her voice cracking. "They've taken everything." "Not everything," Madam Ajoke replied firmly. "You still have your mind, your will, and your truth. And I have an idea. Come see me tomorrow." Amina hung up, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. She didn't know what Madam Ajoke had planned, but she trusted her implicitly. As she prepared for bed, Amina looked in the mirror. For the first time in weeks, she saw a glimmer of the woman she used to be. A fighter, a survivor. She whispered to herself, "This isn't over." Little did Musa and Linda know, the tides were about to turn. The early morning sun cast its golden light over the city as Amina arrived at Madam Ajoke's compound in Ikoyi. The sprawling property was a testament to years of hard work and wisdom. Madam Ajoke, a retired business magnate, was one of the few people Amina trusted implicitly. Her guidance had been instrumental in shaping Amina's rise to success. Now, Amina hoped she could help her navigate the storm she found herself in. The elderly woman, dressed in a simple but regal wrapper, greeted Amina with a warm embrace. "My dear, come in," she said, her voice soothing like a balm on Amina's frayed nerves. They settled in the cozy sitting room, surrounded by bookshelves and artifacts that spoke of a lifetime of wisdom and accomplishment. "Amina," Madame Ajoke began, pouring tea into delicate porcelain cups, "you are in the fight of your life, but you must remember one thing. The truth always has a way of coming out." Amina nodded, her eyes clouded with worry. "Mama, they've taken everything. The evidence they presented in court, those documents, those witnesses, I don't know how to fight it." Madame Ajoke smiled knowingly. "That is why you came to me. Let us begin." Digging for the truth. Over the next few days, Madame Ajoke introduced Amina to a network of trusted allies, private investigators, forensic accountants, and legal experts who owed Madame Ajoke favors from years past. Together, they began to unravel Musa and Linda's web of deceit. One breakthrough came when the forensic accountant discovered irregularities in the transactions Musa had made. "These signatures don't match Mrs. Jatau's original records," the accountant explained, pointing to side-by-side comparisons of Amina's genuine and forged signatures. "This is forgery, plain and simple." Meanwhile, the private investigator unearthed startling details about Linda. "She's not just Musa's mistress," the investigator reported, handing Amina a file. "She's his business partner in several illegal ventures, including money laundering." Amina's heart pounded as she flipped through the pages. The evidence was damning: bank statements, email correspondence, and even photographs of Musa and Linda meeting with known criminals. It was clear that their relationship extended far beyond infidelity. They had used her wealth to fund their schemes, leaving a trail of corruption in their wake. The hidden clause. The most significant revelation, however, came from an unexpected source: an old legal document from Amina's early days as an entrepreneur. Madame Ajoke's legal team combed through her files and found a clause in the original registration of her real estate company, Jatau Properties. The clause stipulated that no transfer of ownership or assets could be made without the explicit approval of all board members. "This clause is your saving grace," Barrister Ease explained when Amina met with him to review the findings. "Musa forged your signature, but he didn't realize that the board's approval was also required. This makes all his transactions null and void." Amina's eyes widened with hope. "Does this mean I can get everything back?" Barrister Ease nodded. "It means we have a solid case to overturn their claims. But it will take careful planning and execution." Preparing for battle. Armed with new evidence, Amina began preparing for the next court hearing. Madame Ajoke was by her side every step of the way, offering encouragement and advice. "Remember, Amina," she said one evening as they reviewed documents, "you are not just fighting for yourself. You are fighting for every woman who has been underestimated, cheated, and betrayed. Your victory will be their victory." Amina felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about reclaiming her wealth, it was about proving that no one, no matter how cunning, could destroy what she had built. The turning of the tide. The day of the court hearing arrived, and the tension in the air was palpable. The courtroom was packed, with reporters, curious onlookers, and even a few of Amina's former employees who had come to support her. Musa and Linda entered with their usual smugness, but their confidence faltered when they saw the stack of evidence Amina's team had prepared. Barrister Ease presented the findings methodically, dismantling Musa's case piece by piece. The forged signatures, the illegal transactions, and the hidden clause in the company's registration documents, all were laid bare before the court. When the forensic accountant testified, explaining in detail how Musa and Linda had manipulated financial records, the courtroom erupted in murmurs. Musa's lawyer tried to object, but Justice Al-Yamid silenced him with a stern look. Linda's face turned pale as the private investigator revealed her involvement in money laundering. Photos of her and Musa meeting with known criminals were displayed on a screen for everyone to see. By the time Amina took the stand to tell her side of the story, the mood in the courtroom had shifted. She spoke with grace and conviction, recounting her journey from a small-town girl in Kaduna to a successful businesswoman. She described the betrayal she had endured and the resilience it took to fight back. "I trusted Musa," she said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I built my empire with hard work and integrity, only to have it stolen from me. But I refuse to be a victim. Justice must prevail." The collapse of Musa and Linda. By the end of the day, Musa and Linda's case was in shambles. Their lawyers stumbled over objections, unable to counter the mountain of evidence Amina had presented. Musa's once confident demeanor crumbled as he realized the magnitude of his mistakes. Linda, who had been so brazen in her mockery of Amina, now sat silently, her face a mask of fear. The courtroom was no longer a stage for their performance, it was the scene of their downfall. As the judge announced that the verdict would be delivered in a week, Amina walked out of the courtroom with her head held high. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of victory. The battle wasn't over, but the tides had turned in her favor. Quite resolved. That evening, Amina returned to her home and stood in the empty living room. She thought about everything she had endured, the betrayal, the humiliation, the fight to reclaim what was hers. But she also thought about the lessons she had learned and the strength she had discovered within herself. This isn't just my fight, she whispered to herself. This is for every woman who has ever been wronged. And I will win. As she prepared for the final battle, Amina knew one thing for certain. Musa and Linda had underestimated her. And that would be their ultimate undoing. The courtroom was brimming with anticipation on the day of the verdict. The media frenzy surrounding the case had reached a fever pitch, with headlines splashed across every major newspaper and TV station. Amina Jatau versus Musa Jatau had become the talk of Lagos, a story of betrayal, resilience, and the fight for justice. Amina sat at the defendant's table, exuding calm confidence. She was dressed in a bold orange and gold ochre gown, symbolizing both her cultural pride and her unyielding spirit. Her team of lawyers, led by Barrister Ease, was equally composed, their confidence bolstered by the airtight evidence they had presented in court. Across the room, Musa and Linda sat together, their earlier smugness replaced by visible tension. The walls of their deceit were crumbling, and they knew it. Musa adjusted his tie nervously while Linda avoided eye contact with anyone, her once bright aura dimmed by the weight of the evidence against her. The verdict. Justice Al-Yamid entered the courtroom, her expression unreadable as she took her seat at the bench. The room fell silent as she began to speak. This case has been one of the most complex and controversial I have presided over in recent years, she said, her voice firm. It is a case that highlights the importance of truth, integrity, and justice. She recounted the key points of the case, emphasizing the forgery, financial manipulation, and illegal transactions orchestrated by Musa and Linda. The judge praised the diligence of Amina's legal team for uncovering the hidden clause in the company's registration documents and presenting clear evidence of forgery. After reviewing all the evidence and testimonies, it is clear that the claims made by Mr. Musa Jatau and Ms. Linda Odafe are baseless, fraudulent, and malicious, Justice Al-Yamid declared. The court hereby nullifies all transactions made under forged documents and reinstates Mrs. Amina Jatau as the rightful owner of her assets and properties. The gallery erupted in applause, and Amina felt a surge of relief and triumph. The judge continued, turning her attention to Musa and Linda. Furthermore, the court finds Mr. Musa Jatau and Ms. Linda Odafe guilty of forgery, fraud, and conspiracy to defraud. They will face criminal charges and are hereby ordered to repay all funds stolen from Mrs. Jatau, with interest. Musa's face turned ashen, and Linda gasped audibly. The two exchanged panicked whispers, their carefully constructed facade crumbling before everyone's eyes. The aftermath. As Amina walked out of the courtroom, surrounded by her supporters, she was greeted by a throng of journalists eager for her statement. She paused, raising a hand to silence the crowd. This victory is not just mine, she began, her voice steady and resolute. It is for every woman who has ever been underestimated, silenced, or betrayed. Let this be a message. No matter how dark the storm, truth and justice will always prevail. The reporters erupted into cheers, their cameras capturing the moment. Amina turned and walked away, her head held high, as her words echoed in the minds of everyone present. The fall of Musa and Linda. The legal consequences for Musa and Linda were swift and severe. Both were arrested shortly after the verdict and faced additional charges for their involvement in illegal activities. Their assets were frozen, and their names became synonymous with disgrace. Linda, once the picture of confidence, found herself abandoned by the friends and allies she had courted during her rise. Musa, too, was left with nothing but regret as he realized the extent of his folly. The empire he had hoped to steal from Amina had turned into a prison of his own making. A new beginning. For Amina, the victory marked the beginning of a new chapter. She dedicated herself to rebuilding her businesses, which had suffered during the lengthy legal battle. With Madam Ajoke's guidance and support, Amina restructured her companies, ensuring they were stronger and more resilient than ever. But Amina's journey wasn't just about business. She used her experience to inspire and empower others. She established a foundation to support women entrepreneurs, providing mentorship, funding, and resources to help them navigate the challenges of building their own empires. One evening at the launch of her foundation, Amina stood before an audience of young women, sharing her story. Resilience is not just about bouncing back, she told them. It's about growing stronger through adversity, about turning pain into purpose. If I can rise again, so can you. The audience erupted into applause, their faces alight with hope and determination. Closure. Months later, Amina visited the courtroom where it had all begun. She stood in the empty hall, reflecting on how far she had come. The echoes of her footsteps reminded her of the moments she had felt broken and lost, but they also reminded her of the strength she had found within herself. As she left the courtroom, she felt a deep sense of peace. Musa and Linda's betrayal had tested her in ways she could never have imagined, but it had also shown her the depth of her resilience and the power of truth. Amina Jatau was no longer a victim. She was a warrior, a phoenix rising from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and more determined than ever. Months had passed since Amina's victory in court, but the echoes of her resilience continued to reverberate across Lagos and beyond. What had begun as a personal fight to reclaim her dignity had evolved into a movement, a beacon of hope for women across Africa. Amina Jatau had become a symbol of strength, determination, and justice. Rebuilding the empire. Amina's first task after reclaiming her wealth was to rebuild her businesses. The damage caused by Musa's fraudulent activities had left her real estate firm and tech company in a precarious state. But Amina approached the challenge with a renewed sense of purpose. She restructured her businesses, implementing tighter security measures and auditing processes to ensure no loopholes could be exploited again. She surrounded herself with a team of loyal, capable professionals who shared her vision. One of her first major projects was the construction of an affordable housing complex in Lagos. Named Phoenix Estates, it symbolized her rise from the ashes and her commitment to giving back to the community. The project garnered international attention, attracting investors and partnerships from around the globe. Her tech company, Innovatech, also thrived under her renewed leadership. The company developed a solar-powered irrigation system for farmers in rural Nigeria, a project that earned her accolades for its innovation and impact. Empowering women. Amina's experience had shown her how vulnerable women could be in a society that often undermined their achievements. Determined to change this narrative, she founded the Rise Initiative, a foundation dedicated to empowering women entrepreneurs. The foundation provided funding, mentorship, and legal support to women starting their businesses. Amina also partnered with local universities to establish scholarships for young girls interested in technology and business. At the inaugural event of the Rise Initiative, Amina stood before a crowd of women from all walks of life. The air was electric with anticipation as she took the stage, her presence commanding respect and admiration. "When I was betrayed and left with nothing," she began, her voice steady, "I realized something important. No one can take away your inner strength unless you let them. This foundation is here to remind every woman that they are capable of greatness, no matter the obstacles they face." The audience erupted into applause, and Amina knew in that moment that her pain had not been in vain. She had turned her scars into stepping stones, her losses into lessons. Musa and Linda's downfall. While Amina's star was rising, Musa and Linda were sinking deeper into the mire of their own making. The criminal charges against them led to lengthy court battles, and both were convicted of fraud and conspiracy. Musa was sentenced to 10 years in prison, while Linda received 7 years. Their assets were seized to repay Amina and others they had defrauded. Musa's logistics company folded, and Linda's once glamorous lifestyle became a distant memory. The duo who had once mocked Amina now found themselves isolated and forgotten, their betrayal their ultimate undoing. A moment of forgiveness. Despite everything, Amina carried no bitterness in her heart. One day, as she sat in her office overlooking the Lagos skyline, she received a letter from Musa. In it, he apologized for his actions, admitting his greed and expressing regret for the pain he had caused. Amina read the letter twice, her emotions a mix of anger, pity, and closure. She wrote back a short reply. Musa, I forgive you. Not for your sake but for mine. May this be a lesson you carry with you for the rest of your life. She sent the letter and closed that chapter of her life with a sense of finality. Celebrating triumph. A year after her court victory, Amina hosted a gala to celebrate the success of Phoenix Estates and the Rise Initiative. The event was a dazzling affair, attended by prominent figures from business, politics, and the arts. The theme of the night was resilience, and every detail, from the decor to the speeches, reflected Amina's journey. Madame Ajoke, her mentor and confidant, gave a heartfelt toast. To Amina, she said, raising her glass, a woman who turned her pain into purpose and her trials into triumphs. You are not just a survivor, you are a leader, a beacon of hope for all of us. The room erupted into cheers, and Amina felt tears prick her eyes. She looked out at the sea of faces, her supporters, her friends, and the women whose lives she had touched. In that moment, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. A legacy of hope. As the gala drew to a close, Amina stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The city lights stretched out before her, a reminder of how far she had come. She thought about the woman she had been a year ago, broken, humiliated, and uncertain of the future. That woman had risen, stronger and more determined than ever. Her phone buzzed with a message from Ajoke, her loyal assistant. It was a picture of a group of young girls in a classroom, smiling and holding laptops provided by the Rise Initiative. Amina smiled, her heart swelling with pride. Her journey had not just been about reclaiming her wealth, it had been about creating a legacy, about showing the world what resilience looked like. As she turned to rejoin the gala, Amina whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And it was. The phoenix had risen, and there was no stopping her now. The end. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.